Hey, good morning, everybody. Happy November 1st, and welcome to our Wealth Wednesdays. This is a super exciting new presentation that we have via the Million Mom Movement, and we're super passionate about helping more people achieve wealth for themselves and their families. And the Million Mom Movement really represents helping 1,000 people from 100 communities, each reaching out to 10 people and helping them achieve better health and wealth. And so today I'm super excited. We have some special guests here with us. But first, I just want to introduce the Million Mom Movement Council that I've had the honor to work with over the past years, and some of them are just coming on as brand new members in the recent months. But I'm so excited to have worked with Taz Ferreira, as well as Carmela Velarde, and most recently Sherry Packard, who have been just a joy to work with as we host our Fierce Fridays weekly. And we're so excited to now be introducing these Wealth Wednesdays twice a month on the first and third Wednesdays of the month. So please mark your calendars. And without further ado, I'd love to bring on our incredible co-host and visionary here at Purium, product formulator, and co-owner of Purium himself, Dave Sandoval. Welcome and good morning.
Well, thank you, everybody. I'm going to be off camera today just to make sure I've got a strong internet connection. And apparently broadcasting my face takes a lot of bandwidth. I'm not sure. But the truth of the matter is that I love Wealth Wednesdays because wealth is really critical. And what we don't realize is that we're actually born into wealth. That's right. We have an inheritance that we all receive at birth, and it's called human potential or human capital, if you want to put it another way. And when I had a neighbor when I was growing up, and I grew up in a pretty poor neighborhood, and somebody bought the house next door to me, and they came in and started working on it. And I said, "Are you guys a contracting crew?" They said, No, we bought the house." And I said, "Oh," they said, "Yeah, we're going to fix it all up." And they worked for 2-3 weeks just painting everything and mowing the lawns and putting in flowers and, putting trim up and new curtains. And next thing you know, there was a for sale sign on it. And they sold it for $50,000 more than they bought it. And my dad said, "Wow, they only put like $3,000 or $4,000 and a whole bunch of," and then he used this word, "and a whole bunch of sweat equity." I'm like, "Dad, what sweat equity?" He goes, "Oh, well, that's the money you could earn from doing work that other people don't want to do, or doing work that, that gets you ahead in life." I'm like, "Oh, okay." So then I realized that I was born with a lot of money. It's just I hadn't earned it yet. I was born with a lot of wealth. I just hadn't stepped into it yet. And so if you realize that we're all born with unlimited human potential, that potential to learn, that potential to work, that potential to do, that potential to build, and to begin to use that human currency that we were all born with that made us all wealthy. But like so many things, we have to do a little bit, we have to do our part. And today's guest is a crown leader. He has an amazing story of his own rise, to realize the wealth that he desired. He built the business and is now one of our field advisory board members. And we value his opinion. We value his insights. And we definitely are going to value what he has to share with us today. So, Ra of Earth, are you with us?
I am here. Can you hear me?
I am this handsome man right here, Ronald, aka Ra. So good to have you. And I really, there's very few people I just set down the microphone and step aside for, but this gentleman is one of them. So, Ra, I'm just going to ask you to share your wealth of wisdom.
Well, it's an honor to share a stage with you. It always is. And thank you, Naiva, and everybody else that is here participating in this. I'll tell a little bit about my story. And then as David was talking about, we have limitless potential within us. So we are going to talk about ourself, our vision of our self-value and how to increase that power. And then I've got some exercises to give to you, to assign to you so that you can practice and have a direction to go in. after listening to what I have to lecture about. So something regarding a story about myself that I mostly don't share in regards to Purium. You guys may know that I was a business owner, I own gyms, and then I got involved with Purium, but I normally don't tell the story of what happened between me owning a gym and getting Purium going. There was an in-between phase where I was essentially homeless. I literally didn't have a home. There was a time I didn't have a car, and that was my first time ever fasting, because I got rid of the home, and then I was like, let's see how far I can take this. I trusted myself. I got to the point where I had very little money in the bank, and then it was no money. That's why I sold my car. So I had a couple more months, and then it was like, okay, I don't have any more money. I guess I'm not going to eat. And then that was my intro into fasting. And the point is that through that whole time, I still had extreme value of myself. I had a perceived value of self where it didn't matter to me that I didn't have money in the bank, that I didn't have a vehicle. I was literally riding my bike around LA. And during that homeless state, I was trusting that where I was going to sleep that night would show up, and it did. There, I would get a phone call. Hey, I'm leaving for Europe in 3 weeks. Do you want a house at my house? And I would say yes, and then I would be getting to the end of the 3 weeks, and I would just be trusting that I'm valuable enough that I will be taken care of. And it was just an experiment. I'm not saying that we should do that, but I'm just saying that even in dire circumstances, if we keep the trust in self high, then you will only perceive everything as an opportunity, not as a problem. And we, no matter how much money we have in the bank, no matter how difficult our job is, we all have value. And the 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 thing about happiness is that as we progress, we get happy. And that's also how we make ourselves valuable, right? So it's almost like the things that we do in life, if we feel like we're getting better, then we're going to, number one, be happier, and number two, be more valuable to ourselves and to others, which would then translate into wealth, right? Because wealth is essentially generated by value cycling. It cycles out of you and then it comes back into you in the version of currency. It's currency. It's a flow of energy. And that question, am I getting better, is one that we can constantly ask ourselves. If we are on the progression ladder, let's call it, if we're ascending through self, through wealth, then the question that we constantly want to be asking ourselves is, am I getting better? And within our business, we've got a ranking system, right? And it doesn't always have to come down to the rank. We also have dollars in the bank that we're all used to measuring ourselves against. But there's other values that we want to pay attention to. And the thing that a lot of people forget to measure is your efficacy. So self-efficacy, your ability to do things, your ability to dig yourself out of the hole, your ability to climb that mountain. The other day I was like, I'm just going to vacuum my house left-handed, right? And I was like, wow, this is very difficult. If you guys haven't tried it, try vacuuming your house left-handed. I realized that I couldn't control the vacuum with my left hand. I just couldn't do it. Like, I put it on my right hand. I was able to maneuver everything. Left hand, everything felt weak. And then a week later, I vacuumed again. And my left hand was, I would say, 80% better. And right there, I had that progression. I had that noticing that I progressed. And I actually realized that, wow, I'm able to do a lot more because I practiced one time. And I just want to bring this up because within our business, we need to be noticing that we're progressing. Otherwise, we're not going to have self-value. So the question is, like, how do you value yourself? Because if you don't value yourself, nobody else is going to value yourself. And so we always want to be noticing where we are building effectiveness to teach, effectiveness to share, promote products that are going to help people, effectiveness to lead an organization, and also make sure that we're not measuring ourselves against impossible odds. There's a lot of times we're watching people on stage, we're watching people rise, and we're starting to treat ourselves unfairly if we're measuring ourselves and comparing ourselves against impossible odds. So if you see at the end of the month or the beginning of the month 20 rank advancements and you're not one of them, and you're getting down on yourself because you're noticing that you didn't rank advance, we really have to remind ourselves that we have increased our value. Okay. So we want to make sure that we're not measuring ourselves unfairly, because that causes us to feel worse about ourselves. And then we become less powerful. And then when we become less powerful, we become less valuable. So if everybody thinks back to like when they're 20, okay, and then when you're 30, when you're 40, some of us are 50 and 60 on this call. Are you feeling better about yourself, or are you feeling worse about yourself? Because if you're feeling worse about yourself, it's not that you are worse. It just means that your measurement that you're using is getting harder and harder and harder. And then you're falling behind based on your own measurements. So really tune into yourself, look at how you're measuring yourself, and make sure that you're noticing where you're progressing, because you're going to need that in terms of generating wealth. You have to value yourself, and you have to find ways to value yourself. You have to be creative. We get to be creative. We're all blessed to be creative, to tell ourselves the story of why we are valuable. And then that builds self-esteem. And with that self-esteem, we walk into a room with our chest up, we smile when we talk to people, we look into their eyes, and people start to be influenced by you, which again is necessary for wealth. It's necessary for success in this business. Another thing that increases power is alignment, or another word for alignment is congruence. Okay. Now, I usually talk about congruence as thoughts, emotions, actions. Are we doing what we feel like we're doing every moment of the day? Are we living up to our greatest potential? So I'm going to push a little bit further into that than I usually bring onto these calls, because just getting to the point where we're not doing the things that are unharmonious and doing all things that feel harmonious, that's usually the focus that I take, right? Let's shed the inharmonious aspects of ourselves, make sure that we're doing everything that feels in alignment. And that's mostly where most people's comfort zone is that practice. But the next step of that is to make sure that you're not playing the small game, that you're not being in alignment with the small version of yourself, and that you're pushing the boundaries, you're growing, right? And so if you ask yourself in the last week, were there any moments in the last week where you were half-assing? Have you half-assed it in any aspect of your life in the last week? Because you're not going to have flow, which basically means that everything's kind of firing on point, or the flow of currency. There's no way to have flow without engagement. And if you're half-assing it, you're not going to be engaged. Without engagement, there's no influence, there's no leadership, there's no self-development, there's no noticing that you're progressing. You're just laying back. You cannot win a game if you're half-assing it. You cannot win at your marriage. You cannot win in business if you are not fully engaged. If we're working our business 15 minutes a week and you're not even really sure what you're doing, it's not going to flow. Okay? And if you are choosing this business as a part of your self-identity and you're half-assing it and it's not working for you, you are now going to start half liking yourself. I just realized half-assing it is probably not politically correct for this call. It's probably not professional speak. It just kind of popped in my head. But if you're tied to this business, you're not giving your all, then you start to reflect back on yourself and you start to not like yourself. All right. And so realize that being in alignment, if you've chosen this mission, this is not an easy mission. Selling the highest quality superfoods to people, sharing it, however you want to say that, selling, sharing, getting it out there, it's not easy. People are addicted to Doritos and popcorn and movies and cheap beer and cheap everything. This is something that takes courage. And it takes us into the point where we're congruent. And when we push past our boundaries and we do what it takes, when we are creative, when we hit a wall and we work ourselves around that, that's going to lead to higher self-esteem and higher wealth. You don't have to be perfect at this. You just have to be congruent to the greatest version of yourself. And when you have that congruency, which is power, and you have self-esteem, which is it's all working together, you now have an ability to push past walls. You have a willingness to push past walls. That unwillingness, if you're feeling like I'm unwilling to do what it takes, I'm unwilling to find out what I need to do and do it, if I'm unwilling to do the things that I need to do, then that means that you're in the defeat zone. This is dangerous. You're not going to feel better if you're in this zone of just not progressing. You might start feeling worse. You might start looking around and pointing fingers at others and blaming others. And nobody can feel better about themselves by hating others. So you actually, when you're doing that, when you're casting blame, you're really starting to hate others. And you'll even start to hate people for their progress, people that are doing better than you when you start noticing that. And this is creating distance from success in your mind. You're looking at success now as the enemy. I only have a little bit of time, so I'm trying to get this all out. But when you start looking at success as the enemy, you now have what we sometimes call money trauma, right? We now have a trauma with success or with health. It's our responsibility to recognize this.
Just let it flow, Rod. We're with you.
Thank you. It's our responsibility to recognize this and to make sure that we're aware of where we're at and that it is through us developing ourself that we're going to be able to have high self-esteem, high power, be influential into reality. And with that influence, causes others to be valuable, and that's increasing currency, which is going to increase the flow of wealth. So if you're behind the wall, unable to push through it, and these are real things, right? I'm bringing up situation. I feel like we're all at a wall. We might be comfortable pushing through the 5 or 6 or 7 walls. Maybe some of us are currently pushing through 15, but we're all at the point where we're unwilling to go past that. So I'm not saying I'm free of this. I'm definitely aware of my walls. Bringing awareness to that and realizing that the way to get through it is increased self-esteem, increased congruence. And this mission that we're on, serving others, it's a very noble mission. And it's very easy to, shouldn't use the word easy. We're all here because we chose this. And there's others out there that are also looking for this. They just don't know that it's a possible choice for them. So we must push out and find those people and give them this opportunity. Because back to me being homeless, sometimes I slept in other people's houses that offered it to me. Sometimes I slept in my storage shed. Sometimes I slept at the Korean spa. My car didn't have a roof because I was all into nature. So I got a car that didn't have a roof. It wasn't a convertible, it was a 3-wheeled car that didn't have a roof. It was a slingshot. So this completely took me from that level of living into one that was my wildest dreams at the time. Now I have other dreams, right? But at the time, living at a house overlooking Laguna Beach where I can watch the sunset every single day from my balcony over the Pacific Ocean, this was my dream house. And Purium supported me to get there in ways that were in such extreme alignment to my soul that I couldn't even put it into words. I just had a general feeling sense of what my life would feel like if it were perfectly aligned. And I didn't know Purium was going to be the vehicle that took me there. But when I understood the plan, it felt right. And I went into it. And my life unfolded exactly, just complete alignment. We also, speaking of power, we need the brain and the body connected. The gut is everything. I could speak for hours on the consciousness, the intelligence of our gut. And so we've got that baked into our, let's call it career choice on this mission, that we get to serve others and serve ourselves superfoods that are nourishing to our body. It detoxifies our body. It detoxifies our life. It repairs, rebuilds, restructures. These are not claims or or anything I'm saying is not intended to treat, diagnose, or cure anything. But this is all here and available to us. We are in service. Now, I asked you if there is any time in the last week that you have been half-assing it. I'm going to go back to the beginning where I want to share my screen if I am a host. I hope I am. So I've got some questions. You guys can screenshot this. So what is a target goal that you have not currently completed?
I get self-improvement class, and I sell this super nutritious food.
I muted Bob there. All right. So here's some questions that you don't have to, I would screenshot it because we're going to go through this quickly because I'm wrapping up here, but this is a way that you could get in the direction. All right. What is a target goal that you have not currently completed? We all are aware of that. Okay. But now list all of the ways that you are now closer to that goal than you ever have been. All right. So we can strengthen ourselves based on what we have not completed. If we are aware of how much closer we are now than we ever were. I'm going to switch slides. Make sure you screenshot it. So here's another couple of questions. Assess your life regarding money and write down the beliefs you must have to organize your life in the way that it is worked out. What that means is look at your life, look at your money, look at your wealth, and write down the beliefs that match that. What are the beliefs that you must have to have created a life that you're currently living in regards to money or wealth? Be aware, bring that to the surface. And once you do that, looking at those beliefs, how is there a way to enhance that? How can you enhance that belief to ascend the programming that you have internally? This is a quick thing. In 90 seconds, list as many things as possible that you have attained or achieved. That's again, back to bringing value to self. Go through the list of the things that you've achieved in your life and notice the level of trust you needed to attain those items. And then obviously, when we're looking forward to attainment, to targets, to goals, even to just acceptance of love, of wealth, of money, of relationship, of enhanced skill set.
Hey, Ra, I don't mean to interrupt you, but it looks like some of us are not seeing the second slide.
Let me see. It says I'm still sharing the screen.
You might have to unshare and reshare. Thank you.
Okay, so I think that this might be where we're at. If we can screenshot that, I already talked about it, about assessing your life in terms of the beliefs you must have. And then is this going? Okay, that's still there, right? In 90 seconds, write down as many things as possible that you have attained or achieved. Then go through the list, notice the level of trust you needed to attain in those items, realize that if you are going to attain anything else, if you're going to ascend your level, that an increased level of trust in self is necessary. Now, this is where we get to tell ourselves a story about Purium that we're aligned to. Okay. We really have to align Purium to the activities that we are, number one, good at, and number two, enjoy doing. And some of us love talking to people. Some of us love presenting. Some of us love connecting. Find those things that are your skills and build your environment around that. So you can also develop, hone, practice those skills. Again, I'm just giving you some questions. You can answer these on your own while, just thinking for a few seconds, or you can actually spend about 4 minutes on each one of these questions. That would be my assignment with this. What is something you can do in the next week to express one of the skills that I was just mentioning a little bit more fully? If you like talking to people, can you express that more fully? If you like pushing others into their greatest version of self, can you do that in Purium or in any other way? Build your leadership skills. This is what are the activities you enjoy doing. Pick one of these activities and list 4 ways that you are able to create money doing them. Again, with Purium. We get in the habit of posting on social media, but if that's not creating income, if it's not helping others create income, then we're really not doing the work that is necessary for us to generate wealth in this business. Okay? So it's aligning the things that we're good at, that we enjoy doing, and that are actually working. It's increasing the bottom line. Last slide. This might be the most important. Imagine yourself 11 years from now, and you've given yourself permission to be all that you can be. What does that life look like? We can journal this for 4 minutes. And then the next question, what if you don't? What if you don't progress? What if you don't build up your self-esteem? What if you don't focus on service? What if you don't find alignment within your life? What does your life look like if you just continue on in a comfortable? Comfort's not bad, but it's when we get to defeated, when we get to being unwilling to push past the boundaries of comfort, when we're defeated, when we have that feeling of defeat. Okay, we don't always need to be in takeoff mode. So this whole presentation, just to recap, was about awareness of our value in terms of how we measure ourselves, awareness of how to increase our self-esteem, and how we can use that with alignment and congruence to increase our power, which essentially increases our value to the world. And with increased value to the world, we stimulate increased currency flowing back to us. And this is how I've set up multiple businesses. Increase the value of self, increase my value that I bring to others. And with that comes a feedback mechanism of wealth in all ways. Relationships, attention in terms of social media, that's valuable. And money in the bank, which is what a lot of us use to buy things. I want to finish off with one thing. I was reminded of a friend who told me about a dream, and I can't remember if he told me, if he just told the internet, but he was dreaming that he had a fishbowl for a head, and the fishbowl had green liquid in it, and coming out of the fishbowl was 5 tubes, and these tubes were sucking in green liquid, and it was going into the fishbowl, and coming out of his forehead was a hole that was spraying this green liquid out into reality. So anywhere where he was looking, he was spraying this green liquid, and then the 5 tubes were sucking that green liquid in to his head. And what his diagnosis of this dream was, that these 5 tubes was his senses. And however he was perceiving reality based on his senses is what that he would receive. So he was bringing in green, spraying out green, which would then bring in green. And if he just put a little drop of red in there, it wasn't going to change anything because he was still going to pick up mostly green. And in order to drastically change our reality, our situation in reality, and how we perceive it, there needs to be massive shift in awareness. There need to be a whole bucket of red coming in there in order for what we perceive and what we experience to be a different color. And that's why it's so important to know how we relate to money, how we relate to wealth. Do we feel like we need to work a lot for it? Do we feel like we need to struggle for it? Do we feel like we deserve it? Do we not deserve it? Do other people deserve it? Is there limited quantities? Because that's how we're going to be telling ourselves the story of how it operates in our life. And once again, I know how I feel about money. I'm very clear on the program that I run about how it works. And I know, and I'm open to evolving that. And it's my hope and my invitation that we're all open and knowing that this is an evolving process and we're constantly going to be progressing through our relationship with wealth, with money. And if we're just ignoring that relationship, we're essentially being a bad partner. And partners like that also get ignored. You know, you get in what you put in. So just wanted to end. I just had a imagination of that dream and just wanted to emphasize that this isn't a small task. We don't just decide, oh, I like things to be better. I'm gonna put a little drop of another color into reality. It does take drastic shifting. It does take cutting out the parts of our life that don't fit the new vision. Tracy last night on the call mentioned the word decision. Etymologically, decision means to cut out or to cut off. So in order for us to decide on something, we must decide on what not to do as well. And that's where we get the override. We can override our current situation with a better choice for us in the moment. That's it. And that's all for me for now, unless we got questions.
Beautiful, Rob. Thank you so much, everybody. Shower him with some love emojis if you want. And thank everybody. What a great way to visualize it. And so, you know, it's funny, you know, when we are climbing a ladder, it's like we don't think we're a success until we get off of the ladder at the top, wherever we're climbing it to. And Ra is trying to give us a whole new perspective. Every rung of that ladder you climb is a success. Every step is a success. Everything that takes you closer than you were yesterday has to be measured as a success, because if we wait for the ultimate success before we're inspired, that's too late. It's going to be too late. So we need to inspire ourselves along the way. And that's such a beautiful thing. So I'm going to leave you guys with another thought. And that is, in this hierarchy of needs, Ra is inviting you to keep pushing through the comfort zones, keep creating new and, more amazing realities for yourself. And so I think that, I used to say, see it, believe it, achieve it. And now I think it really is, I still like that, but I just think that, you really, really do have to visualize your ultimate success, but savoring every step of the way and realizing that you're better than you were yesterday. And if you measure and you're not, then it gives you a way to get back in the game. So, Ra, thank you. There's so much more. We will have you back another time for part 2 or a building on this if you're willing. And any final words before we turn it back over to Naeva?
I could talk forever on that. But yeah, I was just reminded because I used to own gyms, I used to work with athletes. It's not winning the game that makes you the winner, right? It's the consistent everyday effort, the paying attention to the diet, getting up and going to the gym early before you go to classes for the day for school or work or both. It's all of that. That's what contributes to you winning, not because you cross the finish line before everybody else. And you don't even get that opportunity unless you're consistent. And we step into freedom of the horror of constantly looking down on ourselves when we can realize the consistent effort that we're doing day by day and realizing that that's why we can choose to view ourselves as a winner. And it has nothing to do with the finish line. It has nothing to do with what other people think of you. It has nothing to do with the followers or even the money in the bank. It just has to do with what you're doing consistently day by day. Choose the greatest version of yourself in every moment, in every day, and you will be the greatest version of yourself.
Beautifully said. Okay, Naeva, thank you for hosting us tonight. Thank you, Ra. This afternoon. And Naeva, I'm going to turn it back over to you.
Thank you so much, Dave. Thank you so much, Ra, for all those amazing slides and giving us some homework to really dive into what we're desiring in our future and really helping us to envision that not only in the near future, like we did in the vision boarding for our next year with Tracy, but for the next 11 years and seeing where we want to be. And if we don't work on that, what are those consequences? Like, do we still want to be where we're at today? So many golden nuggets from you today. Thank you so much for joining us. And here, each and every one of you are part of the Million Mom Movement, also known as the Movement of Many, as we want to be inclusive to each and every one of you. And we're all part of growing us to 1,000,000 strong. And so like I started this call out, we're 1,000 families in 100 different communities, each spreading this to 10 other people that we want to encourage to have access to a better quality of life, to thrive in their health and their wealth. And if you're brand new on this call, then make sure and reach back out to the person who invited you, because they invited you here or shared this recording with you because they love you and they want to work with you and they see that this is something that you can align with. And so again, thank you so much, Dave. Thank you so much, Ra. Thank you to each and every one of you for joining us and being a part of the Million Mom Movement. And join us this Fierce Friday. We're going to be diving into some incredible topics.
And today at 4.
And today at 4 with Dave. First, join us today at 4 with for our kickoff call. Join us this evening at 6 o'clock with Dave for going into how to recover from Halloween. And then, of course, this Friday we'll be leaning off of that. And our next Wealth Wednesday will be on the 15th. So come back to this line on the 15th for our next episode of Wealth Wednesday. Thank you, everyone. Have a beautiful afternoon.
Good night. Goodbye, everybody. Looking forward to seeing you at 4. Thanks again, Ron.